ugly, okay? It was not cute at all. There was no aesthetics. There is no aesthetics to healing. Let's just get that out of the way, okay? Regardless of what anybody says on the internet, on social media, there is no aesthetics to healing. Healing is not just about, having a self-care day and, you know, being able to just have a slow morning and being one with self. Like, it is an ugly journey. And I kid you not, in the beginning of my healing journey, I was doing everything all wrong. Okay. Talk about healing in the most toxic way ever. Everything you can think of imaginably, I probably did it. And I ain't even trying to admit all of that because, the feds is always listening. Now, but OMG, family, can you guys believe it? We have reached the quarter mark in our goal of reaching 100 subscribers. Thank you so much. And of course, we are still on the journey. So if you have not yet, please hit the subscribe button right now. Okay? Thank you so much for subscribing. And, I just want to be able to share an authentic journey with each and every one of you guys. We can't do this alone. Healing in isolation is just not fun. Trust me, I've tried it for way too long. So, with that being said, thank you so much. And let's hop into this week's episode. Hey, VIP family, and welcome back to another episode. Here is just a safe space where we are just trying to figure out how to master peace after loss and discover living our most authentic life. Now, as y'all can see and as y'all can hear, I'm definitely feeling way better than I felt last week. Allergies are still a little there, but definitely feeling so much better, and I'm so grateful for that. Today, y'all, I just kind of wanted to, talk to y'all real quick about, of course, healing. Like, what else are we here for? But I definitely just wanted to kind of just tap in really quick, and just talk about, having the grace, having the grit, having compassion when going through our healing journey. I can always remember the beginning stages of my healing journey, and it was ugly, okay? It was not cute at all. There was no aesthetics. There is no aesthetics to healing. Let's just get that out of the way, okay? Regardless of what anybody says on the internet, on social media, there is no aesthetics to healing. Healing is not just about, having a self-care day and, being able to just have a slow morning and being one with self. Like, it is an ugly journey. And I kid you not, in the beginning of my healing journey, I was doing everything all wrong. Okay. Talk about healing in the most toxic way ever. Everything you can think of imaginably, I probably did it. And I ain't even trying to admit all of that because, the feds is always listening. Now, but on a serious note, I just remember when I was in like the storm of everything, when everything kind of just like literally just happened, you're kind of like in this confused, nothing is making sense type of stage. There's so many different stages in grief. There's the denial, there's the acceptance, there's the bargaining, there's the, all the different stages. But I just remember just not wanting to feel pain. So you kind of just numb it in the most toxic ways ever. And that can be anything, okay? We all deal with grief in such different ways. And I know, from speaking for myself, one of the ways that I used to try to numb the pain necessarily was smoking. Like, I would be a weed smoker morning, noon, and night. At first, I was telling myself, oh, I'm smoking because, it gives me an appetite. I wasn't eating this, that, and the third. Um, oh, it just makes me think clearer, or, it allows my anxiety for me to deal with my anxiety and things of that nature. And though some of those things may have been true at that moment, it was definitely a toxic way for me to try and heal through my journey. And no judgment, no shade. Me currently, even just as I'm talking to you right now, I'm still dealing with using weed as a coping mechanism. Today is, as I record this video, it is April 10th, and I am officially 76 days weed free. Now, I know the challenge for me is going to be 420 this year, because, if you was a regular smoker, you already know that's a national holiday for us to smoke. And I'm definitely just working through my journey and just trying to, implement better, healthier habits within my healing journey. And I remember also in my early stage, one of the healthy habits that I used to have was date nights with God. And what that consists of is basically just going to the beach. Yeah, I lived in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, majority of my entire life. So going to the beach was nothing. You just hop in the car. It's a quick 15-minute drive just to get to the beach. And I would always have like a blanket or something in my car, in the trunk of my car. And I used to do it every single Wednesday night. I used to leave work. I wouldn't even go home. Like I said, I would have a blanket already in the trunk of my car, and I would leave work and go straight to the beach. And I would call those date nights with God, because it got to a point where it's just like, God, I just need you to take this pain away. Everything that I'm doing or trying to do is not taking the pain away. And I'm tired. I'm exhausted. Like, I don't want to keep going through these cycles of grief over and over and over again. I feel like I'm losing myself. I feel like I'm drowning. I feel like the world is sitting on top of me. And it's either you gonna come for me, or I'm about to come meet you up there. Like, I'm exhausted. So those are like moments where I would just allow myself to just be still and be allow myself to just sit in the emotions of everything. And I would take time to, whether it's just listening to worship music, sometimes I would journal, sometimes I would have my Bible and I would try to read something. And at that time, that was before I really even knew about the different translations of the Bible. So I had the King James Version Bible, and honestly, I didn't really get too far in the Bible. Like, I would read a couple of verses, but it just wasn't making sense. The thous, the these, the listen, it wasn't making sense. And I'm sharing all of this just to show y'all, like, y'all, no matter how many years I've been within my healing journey, there's never really this arrival moment. There's never really this moment where it's just like, aha, I've healed and now I'm ready to just live and pass and go past this moment of my life and never think about it again. Like, no, like a healing journey, like, it's ups and downs, it's lefts, it's rights, it's all around. Like, you're gonna have moments where you feel like, yeah, I made progress today, and then you're gonna have moments where it just feels like, the world is sitting on my shoulders right now, and I don't know what to do. I'm feeling stuck. I'm feeling down again. I feel all the nervousness, the confusion, the anxiety, the depression. I'm having these suicidal thoughts, and it's just like, baby, you're doing okay. It's okay. It is okay. Okay? Like, if nobody has told you, it is okay that you are feeling those feelings, because you are experiencing something that, you know, you can't quantify. You can't quantify it into one sentence, into one word, into one feeling. And you have to allow yourself to just go through all of those feelings. And I know it can feel like I don't know how I'm going to get myself out of this hole. And using those toxic habits also is not helping, but it's relieving you of some of those stressful moments, those stressful days where you just want a quick escape. And I'm no therapist. I can't tell you what to do. There are so many different avenues where we can discover healing and, authentically become a version of ourselves that we haven't really been introduced to yet. And, as I've been going through this journey for myself, I have tried so many different ways. Like I said, there has been the toxic ways and there has been the good and the healthy ways. And this community, honestly, is just about being authentic in our journey and not trying to paint this picture like I have it all figured out. I have it all together. Baby, I don't. Okay, I'm pretty sure that you probably have something that you can teach me, and maybe there's something that I can teach you. And we can kind of just figure this thing out together, because when we're going through grief, one of the biggest lies the enemy tries to tell us is that you are the only person experiencing this. There is nobody else in this world that knows what you're going through, that feels what you're going through, and they just won't understand. They won't get it. And I'm here to tell you that is a complete lie. Okay? Like, there are people who literally understand exactly what you're going through. They may not have experienced the same exact things that you have experienced, but they know how it feels to feel down and out, to feel depressed, to feel anxiety, to feel like they have no value in this world, to feel like, it's just not worth it to keep going, to feel like, I just want to go and cry, and if I wake up tomorrow morning, cool, but if I don't, I'm all right with that. And it's just like, no, we have to get to a path. We have to get in community and know that we're just not alone. Okay. So, of course, y'all, I don't want to make this platform feel churchy, because, like I said, I'm somebody who's still on my journey myself. But I can't help it, because honestly, going throughout my journey, if there's one thing that I have learned, is that making God the center of my life has truly helped me to discover peace and truly understanding what it even means to live a life of peace. And I'm just always going to talk about God, because that's my man's, okay? So, of course, I am going to break out the Bible. And one of the things that I kind of was reading was John chapter 14 through chapter 16. Now, there's 3 chapters, and just to kind of give a sum of what was going on, this is when Jesus is basically telling his disciples that he is going to be going back to his Father. And of course, if you are familiar with the Bible, Jesus has this thing of just kind of speaking in parables, where it's just like, my guy, kind of speak to us straight. Like, we're not understanding all the parables, but God is so strategic that everything he does always comes together and makes sense. But in 14, he's talking about, how he's going to be going back to his father, and that, he's going to send an advocate, which is the Holy Spirit, to his people, and that, he's not going to leave us or abandon us, and that, he's going to leave us with a gift, and that gift is peace of mind. And, this peace is a peace that the world cannot give us, that only he can give us. And when I go back and I actually read that, which is, I can tell you specifically, it's John 14, verse 27, where he's talking about that. And when I really sit down and I think about that, it's like, when I was going through my journey, I tried to find comfort and peace in so many different things, from smoking, from drinking, to partying, to, doing all type of things that was of the world. And no matter how many times I may indulge in those things, it may have given me temporary relief, but I was right back where I started, which was feeling the anxiety, feeling the depression, feeling like I was drowning. And it didn't matter how many times I kept indulging, I kept finding myself right back at square one. And it wasn't until that I really, started surrendering things to God and allowing him to be my peace, that I really started to learn how real peace felt. And honestly, like, from that moment, I have not left God. Now, that does not mean that I am perfect. By all means, baby, I am far, far from perfect, okay? I like to say I'm holy, but I'm ratchet, okay? I am recovering ratchet. I am a recovering ratchet, okay? Like, there are still things that God is working through me, but one thing I do know is that I allow God to continue to work in me and then through me. So that kind of brings me into the next passage that I kind of wanted to read, which is in John 15. In John 15, you probably have heard this passage before, but this is where Jesus is telling the disciples, I am the true grapevine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch of mine that doesn't produce fruit, and he prunes the branches that do bear fruit so they will produce even more. Now, it says that Jesus is the grapevine, my Father is the gardener. And in order for us to produce fruit, we are the branches that are attached to the vine, right? And one of the things that really stood out to me is how he says that God, the Father, which is God, he's the gardener. And as the gardener, he says that, you know, he's pruning the branches, right? So as the gardener, he's either cutting away branches that don't produce fruit, or he's pruning the branches that already produce fruit so that they can produce even more fruit. Now, I know I don't have a green thumb. At least I haven't discovered yet, okay? I don't have a green thumb. But one thing that I was researching is that, what does it really mean to prune? And what I discovered is that pruning is to cut away what is unwanted or superfluous. And what does superfluous means? Okay, y'all, listen, I'm in my studying bag, okay? But what does superfluous means? It means to be obsolete, marked as wasteful. So one of the things that I realized is that those moments when I was having those date nights with God, at the beach, getting in my word, being in worship or just praying, those were the times where God was pruning me. He was pruning away the things that were wasteful, that were obsolete, that, wasn't aiding in the producing of more fruit in my life. At that time, one of the biggest fruit that I wanted to be produced in my life was peace. Lord, I just want peace. I want peace. I don't want to go through this grieving. I don't want to feel this heartache anymore. My heart is broken into pieces. I am aching. Um, I'm just so exhausted. And if you are truly going through a grieving process, you know that there's like this point within the process where you just become overly exhausted. It doesn't matter how much sleep you get, it doesn't matter how much you rest on the weekends or, take time for yourself, or you can even go as extent as getting a massage or doing all of these extensive relaxation things, but you're still feeling so exhausted. Your body is exhausted, but it's not really just your body that's exhausted. It is your soul. It is your spirit that is feeling exhausted. And if you will just allow yourself to rest in God, to rest and know that He is taking control of your life, baby, when I say I started to see peace develop in my life, and that way, the things, the the small things that I was doing started to stack. And instead of doing toxic habits, I started to develop healthy habits. Some of those healthy habits was journaling, you know, writing out the emotions that I was feeling that day, actively praying. You know, I started to actually communicate how it was that I was feeling. I'm actively in therapy right now. I did try therapy in the past before I found my current therapist, and it just wasn't working for me. It wasn't working for me. So I did maybe like 3 or 4 sessions, and I just stopped because I just felt like it just didn't feel natural communicating with somebody on that level like that. So what I was doing was personal development. I did personal development every single morning. Do you hear me? And not just spiritual personal development, but even just business personal development, relational personal development. But I got to a point where I wanted all the knowledge. I wanted all the knowledge because it just felt like whatever I was doing just was not right. But it wasn't until I got peace from God that allowed me to then discover all of these additional habits that will then help me on my healing journey. So do with that what you will. Some things work for some people and some don't. I have other, people that I have connected with based off of grief that, they're not a person that likes to journal. They probably fully went into just doing therapy alone, like meeting with a counselor, meeting with a professional therapist truly helped them. For me, it started off with just being able to just journal it and allow myself to even just hear me read that journal back to myself. So finding what works for you, but no matter what it may be, I know for a fact that nothing you do will work until you allow God to step in. Okay? That's it. That's it and that's all. Okay? And one of the next things that I kind of just wanted to touch on very quickly, this is in chapter 16, and this is verse 33. He says, I have told you all this so that you may have peace in me. Here on earth, you will have many trials and sorrows, but take heart because I have overcome the world. You know, one of my biggest questions when I first went through my grief, I ain't even gonna lie to y'all, was, God, why you had to take my mom? I know so many people who don't even talk to their mama, but their mama's still here. Well, why did you have to take my mom? My mom she was active in church. She was active in her job. She was a teacher. You know, her students loved her. Parents loved her. Like, my mom was doing all of the things. She got 4 kids, which included me, but 3 of them were, you know, my little brother was still in diapers. So it's just like, God, I felt like my mom had all this fruit to still produce in her life. Why did you take my mom? But, you know, one thing I learned is that because this world is ran by the enemy. And because of that, we are going to have sorrow. We are going to have trials and tribulations. But God, Jesus, he loved us so much that, you know, he gave up himself to overcome the world. That no matter the trials and tribulations that we may be faced with, that we may go through, that he is still going to be an advocate for us. And actually, one of the verses that I also wanted to touch on here was that, and this is back in chapter 15, John 15, and this is verse 16, that says, "You didn't choose me, I chose you. I appointed you to go and produce lasting fruit so that the Father will give you whatever you ask for using my name." Jesus sacrificed himself. The Father sent him in human form, and he sacrificed himself to conquer the world. Like, if that isn't love, I don't know what is. And because I now know that fact, regardless of what I might be faced with, regardless of what I may go through, I know that God is going to give me peace throughout the storm. And no matter how ugly your journey looks right now, I have faith that as you continue to push forward on your journey in healing, that God will literally allow your crooked path to become straight. That he will give you reminders that his hand is still on your life. And that there is nothing, literally nothing that you can do or that I can do that will stop God from loving us. He loves you so much. And I know you want full, detailed reasons as to why you're going through what you're going through. But allow this to comfort you right now. Allow yourself to give God the space, the room to do the pruning he needs to do, so that way you can produce lasting fruit. Not just for yourself, but for all those connected to you. Okay? Whew. Yeah. Man, sometimes just thinking about my journey thus far, again, I cringe a little bit because it's just like, dang girl, you was a little ratchet. And again, I'm still ratchet. Okay? Still working. God is still working on me. But again, y'all, this is just a community for us to show up as our most authentic self, for us to just keep showing up, keep trying, keep moving, keep growing. As we discover God, we'll also discover who we are in Him and our purpose throughout this earth. So with that being said, I love you, family. Y'all be encouraged. Know that joy is always going to come in the morning. Wipe your tears. Stand back up and allow God to just move how He needs to. I love y'all and see you on the next episode.